Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Switch gears, and as we do every Sunday, listen, we talk about a lot of different stuff over the course of a college football week and month and year. But as we've done basically every Sunday on this channel, do want to spend just a few minutes doing the postmortem on Colorado football. You guys and girls care. You love them. You hate them. You root for them. You root against them. But they are a fascinating program. And every Sunday we kind of just do, what went right, what went wrong, positives, negatives, this and that. Well, admittedly, things are getting a little bit tougher to talk with Colorado in terms of a positive light. The team, even just coming into this past Saturday's game against Oregon State, had lost 4 of 5, really struggling after that 3-0 start. And obviously, there was a major piece of news that broke Friday when it was, I don't know if it was officially announced or it was reported or rumors or whatever, but we found out that Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator, play caller, was essentially demoted during the week. We don't know exactly all the details around it. Coach Prime has been pretty coy about it, but Pat Shurmur, former NFL head coach and offensive coordinator, was part of the staff, was an analyst, and we find out on Friday that he's going to be the one calling plays. So you hope things are going to be different. You hope this is the shakeup that we need, and instead, not so much, as Colorado loses to Oregon State 26-19 to fall to 4-5 overall, and just another frustrating loss where not a lot goes right. And so, of course, as soon as Colorado loses, we get the two very polarizing sides of the Colorado situation. The people that say, oh, Coach Prime, it's all rainbows and sunshine. Everything's going to be fine. I'm not going to do that here. But at the same time, the people that are just out there of, oh, he's in over his head, he doesn't know what he's doing, this is a disaster. I think you need a little bit of context too. And I think we need to have an honest conversation about where Colorado is, the positives, but also the negatives, and how they can build on this over the final few weeks into the offseason. First of all, let's talk about Saturday. And listen, bluntly, I'm not going to sit here and put a positive spin and everything's perfect and everything's going to be fine and blame everybody else other than the 85 players and the coaching staff in that locker room. It is clear things are not going well. It is clear things are regressing. It is clear that some things with this team simply aren't fixable on a positive or negative side, right? You hope with the addition of Pat Shurmur as the offensive play caller that things will be better on offense. Instead, they somehow got worse. Through the first 3 quarters of that game, Colorado had 78 yards of total offense, 3 offensive points. Now, they did score 14 points and they did score 2 touchdowns, with 160 yards in the fourth quarter, But again, it was tough to watch. It was interesting. I was doing my radio show, and every time you kind of looked at the TV, Colorado was either punting or they were on defense. Just felt like they never had the ball. There were no sustained drives. And again, that spark that you wanted on offense that you were hoping you got from Pat Shurmur clearly did not come. The offense is not better. The O-line is still not fixed. And Deion Sanders, listen, I'm not here to pick apart any individual player, but he's not playing very well right now. And part of it is the offensive line isn't very good. I think part of it is he's probably holding on to the football a little bit too long. And I think part of it is, the guy's been hit so many times this year, not excusing some of the times where he holds on to the ball too long. But I don't want to say he's shook. But it's like, when you get thrown to the ground 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game, like, of course you're going to be a little bit, nervous or whatever back there. So he is not playing well right now. He's certainly not playing with the confidence and swag and all the things that he was doing at the start of the year. Part of it's the offensive line. Part of it is maybe whatever the coaching, and part of it is on him as well. Not good enough. And again, 78 yards through 3 quarters. That's not a one-person problem. That's not an offensive line problem. That's not a quarterback problem. That's not a play calling problem. That falls on everybody. Let me also say this, though. I saw a lot of pushback of, oh, my God, how can you demote your offensive coordinator over the course of a week this late in the season? And this is clear that Coach Prime is in over his head. Stop. This happens all the time. And the job of any coach is to try and figure out when things are not going well, something that is going to spark your team. Think about Alabama right now. Alabama just beat LSU, and they basically are one win away from going to play for another SEC championship. Does anybody besides me remember in week 3 when they benched their starting quarterback, Jalen Milroe? And we talked about it on the show this week, and we're going to talk about it in another segment. But like, I don't know if Nick Saban did that because he knew that Jalen Milroe was the guy, but he needed the public to see that the other guys needed to get reps. Like, I don't know if he really believed that one of those other guys gave him a better opportunity, but he benched his starting quarterback in week 3. And then he brought him back in week 4. And since then, they have built Jalen Milroe up into a guy that now wins huge games and is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. You know, LSU, a couple months back, their defense was struggling. They brought in a consultant from outside of the program, a coaching buddy of Brian Kelly's. Ryan Day at Ohio State. Remember, he fired his defensive coordinator in the middle of the season like 3 years ago, which led to the situation now where they have one of the best defenses in all of college football. So this isn't unprecedented. It doesn't mean that Coach Prime is in over his head. And it doesn't mean that like he doesn't like this is something that every coach does at every level in every sport, or at least good coaches, when things are not going well. And Coach Prime even said, he's like, Sean Lewis isn't a bad play caller. I'll read the exact quote just so I don't want to paraphrase and misquote him here. But his exact quote was, you know, Sean's a good man. He's a good play caller. We just needed to change it this time. We needed to try something else at this time, and that's what we did. Like, I'm not going to get mad because Deion Sanders did the same thing that Brian Kelly has done, that Nick Saban has done, that Ryan Day has done in any given season. I'd also say there are some like positives if you look hard enough. And I know it's hard to right now. You've lost a couple games in a row, whatever. The defense is playing pretty well. And I know you look at the yardage and the total yards and this and that. And it wasn't a masterpiece performance. Nobody's comparing them to the 85 Bears. But one thing they're doing really well, they're in good position. They're well prepared. They're well coached. They're taking the ball away. 6 turnovers in the last 2 games forced. And I don't think enough people realize this. You know that Colorado is leading the Pac-12 in turnovers forced? You know that Colorado is in the top 15 nationally in turnovers forced? You know that Colorado I think it's their 4th of all Power 5 teams. It's North Carolina, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma as far as turnovers forced. So the defense is playing better. The defense is keeping them in games. And it's kind of wild, right? Because the front half of the year, the offense was putting up 45, 50 points. The defense couldn't get stops. And now the defense is slowly starting to figure it out, slowly starting to hold teams in check. And it's the offense that can't figure it out. So the defense is getting better. I'm not excusing the offense because they're not playing very well right now. But what I would also say is like, this is a process. And you know, it cracks me up because I get it. I get that when you start 3-0, that when you're in the top 25, that when you beat the reigning national runners up, that like there is a bar that has been set. I also get that because of the exposure that Colorado got early, a lot of people that aren't Colorado fans, aren't Coach Prime fans, aren't Shador fans, aren't whatever, are enjoying watching them lose. I think that's nonsense. Like, you know, one thing that like drives me crazy, like this idea of, well, you know, Colorado brought it on themselves because they had all these celebrities at their games and like whatever. First of all, as best I can tell, no college football program in the history of the sport has ever turned down College Game Day coming to their campus, has ever turned down Big Noon Kickoff coming to their campus. So was Colorado not supposed to say, hey, Kirk Herbstreit, hey, Pat McAfee, hey, Reese Davis, you know what? Why don't you come and hang out? Like that's never happened. Oh, by the way, is Coach Prime supposed to like say no to The Rock when The Rock wants to speak to the team? Is he supposed to say no to Lil Wayne when Lil Wayne wants to lead them out of the tunnel? It's ridiculous to argue that they brought this on themselves somehow. And I do think there are some positives that need to be taken out of this, the second half of this year. Defense is getting better. You can argue, you can debate. It's factual. Look at the stats. Beyond that, like I said, I do think it is a little bit of a process. People don't want to hear that. But the bottom line is 4-5 is better than the 1-8 that Colorado was last year at this time. And you can sit there and say, well, you know, whatever. I mean, he brought in all these guys. This is whatever. 4-5 is better than 1-8. And you hope that next year you're better than 4-5. But you cannot argue that this program is not in a better spot today, this second, this moment here on November 5th, 2023 than it was November 5th, 2022. I mean, just look at the scores. They lost by 33 to Oregon State last year. Lost by 7 this year. We talked about this a week ago with UCLA. They lost by, I think, 40, 38, 35, something like that to UCLA last year. They lost by 12 last week. And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's all doom and gloom, like there are zero positives. And then finally, what I would say is this. Again, process. Again, recruiting. Again, better players. And it doesn't mean that you don't need to improve on the guys that you have. And it doesn't mean that there weren't some whiffs in terms of the guys that you brought in. But they're also going to be bringing in some good players this offseason. You guys know who they had on campus this week? They had on campus the #1 offensive tackle in all of America, a kid by the name of Jordan Seaton that goes to IMG Academy. Now, I don't know if he's ultimately going to choose Colorado. He's got offers from Bama and Tennessee, Florida. You go on and on down the list. Everybody in America wants him. So I'm not sitting here saying he's going to Colorado. But like that is a kid that would have never in a million years even processed the idea of thinking about Colorado. And this was his second visit this season. He came out for an unofficial a few weeks ago, and now he was back for an official this week. We mentioned it a few episodes ago or on the YouTube channel. King Joseph Edwards, 4-star defensive lineman from Georgia, has an offer from Georgia, has an offer from Florida State. It's all signs point to him choosing Colorado. And so these are the kids that you need in the program. I know that 90% of the kids that are currently in the program are guys Coach Prime chose, but this is a process, and you're not going to hit on everybody, and you're not going to hit on everybody in a transfer portal cycle in one offseason. Certainly didn't happen at USC. Didn't happen at LSU. Nobody goes 1,000 for 1,000, bats 1,000 in the portal. So I could go on and on. I'm not here to excuse it. I'm not here to say everything's perfect, but I am also not going to be doom and gloom. The sky is falling. Everybody give up. We're terrible, because I don't believe that as well. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor, subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, all sorts of good college football content, college basketball content, and we talk a lot of Colorado football. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel.